Do you let the individual know if there's a discrepancy that they'll be able, so that they can fix that and resubmit it?
We do not do that as a rule. There are occasions where we have contacted that person and asked for additional information if there are some discrepancies that we can't resolve and that we would like their help in doing that. Ultimately, as a person goes back and searches our database with some of their own genetic information, they will see a version of a genealogy that looks very nearly like their genealogy. It may be exactly as they submitted, or there may be some alternatives. And we've had that case where people have then come back to us and said, why is it different? And then we're able to go in and talk about that.
We'll take a moment here and remind our listeners and our viewers that this is Questions and Ancestors, a production of BYU Broadcasting. If you would like more information about today's topic or others we cover on this program, you can visit our website at www.ancestors.com, click on Questions and Ancestors, and look for the topic you're interested in.
If you have a family history question or a success story you would like to share, you'll find an email blank on our website, or you can email us directly at questionsandancestors@byu.edu. We will do our best to answer your question or share your success story on an upcoming program. I'm Emily Wilbur.
And I'm Darius Gray, and today we're talking with Scott Woodward about using DNA to do genealogy and family history research. Scott, you were just talking about the database. How large is that? How many people do you have in that study at this point?
We currently have 60,000 people who have donated both their DNA sample and their genealogies.
Are you looking for more?
Absolutely.
So we can ask for volunteers from our listeners and our viewers?
We would very much, because the people who are listening to this program are people who have exactly the type of things that we want, which are genealogies, and all of them I know have DNA. And so they're all qualified.
What are the qualifications?
That's right. We need individuals who are willing to donate a DNA sample and have at least 4 generations of genealogical information. If you have more, that's great. We'll take everything that you have, zip it up on a JEDCOM, and send it in. They can do that very easily by going to our website, which is www.smgf.org.
And our listeners can find a link to that on our website, ancestors.com.
And the SMGF stands for?
The Sorensen Molecular Genealogy Foundation. This is an amazing a project that's been going on for a little over 5 years, and it's primarily funded by a man named James Sorensen, who, and I might add, it's not an inexpensive project. Using DNA to do genealogy is still a fairly expensive proposition.
Well, I've had the pleasure of touring your facility, and thank you very much for that tour. And the facility is wonderful. Squeaky clean, made me a little nervous. 65,000 people, those that you would have volunteer, will add to that. Is there going to be a cutoff point? Again, there's no charge to submit this data. You're just looking to enhance that database, and there's no charge. But will there be a point where you stop taking submissions?
The answer to that is no. We would like to see this continue until it reaches throughout the entire world. We've already started to make some inroads into places in the world that aren't normally thought to be meccas of genealogical research, places where written records may not be kept as well as what we see in some Western countries. Our next point, our goal, is 500,000 samples.
Oh boy.
And we would like to be able to do that in the next year or so.
In the next year?
That means we've got to step it up pretty quick.
Oh, you're going to be busy.
Yes.
Such locations that aren't in the Western world, are you in the third world countries actively engaged?
We are. A couple of things that have happened just this last year, this last couple of months, in fact. We've spent a tremendous amount of time in Mexico. We have established a collaboration with a group in China who will provide for us in the next 3 or 4 months almost 40,000 DNA samples and accompanying genealogies.
Wow.
Out of Shanghai. We're extremely excited about that. I just returned from South Africa, where we were able to do genealogy in a way that people don't usually associate genealogy. We're calling it, in conjunction with a group out of Australia, the National Heritage Foundation, we call this program Applied Ancestry. And what we did is we took 11 young boys off the street of Johannesburg, young men who didn't know their family.
Street children.
Yeah, street kids, exactly. Some of these had, all of them had health problems, some of them had drug problems, but none of them were connected. They had been disconnected from their families.
Were they all living together? Were they all 11 knew each other?
They did not. They had been brought together into a program by the city of Johannesburg into a shelter. And the shelter is attempting to get these kids back on their feet and ultimately back to their families. But their families are not known. And that's where we come in. So we went in, we took DNA samples from the 11 kids, and we looked to see if there were relationships, first of all, between those 11 kids. It turns out that 7 of the 11 kids actually had relationships within that group, that we could tie them together as belonging to the same maternal family.
Wow.
And we were able then to take those individuals back to villages that they came from, and were able to interview family members, tribal members, others that they belonged to, and began the process of putting these families back together again using genealogy and DNA. It was an amazing experience.
And you were there. You saw that.
Oh, absolutely.
How did that affect the kids?
There were actually a lot of tears that were shed. It was pretty amazing, because you can imagine living on the street in a city like Johannesburg or something like that. You could get pretty tough and pretty rough. But when someone is sitting down and asking a relative, asking a grandmother, asking an aunt, who are you? Where did you come from? Tell me about how you grew up. These are all questions that they had been taught and how to interview their ancestors. And they started to hear, who am I? I mean, what kind of heritage did I come from? There were tears that were coming, not just from the young men, but also from the grandmothers and even the people who were watching, like me.
The lost were found.
It was amazing. It was an amazing
Incredible.
experience.
Did any of the kids stay in the villages?
No, they all went back to the shelter in Johannesburg. They're staying. A lot of them have some health problems that still need to be cleared up. Some of them have drug problems that we're trying to deal with. We will return 3 months after the initial contact that we made with them, and at that point, the idea is to get them back into their villages.
We want to pause here and remind you that you are tuned in to Questions and Ancestors, a production of BYU Broadcasting. Our goal is to assist you with your family history questions by having them answered on air by specially chosen experts. I'm Emily Wilbur. If you have questions or success stories, you can send them to us by email at questionsandancestors@byu.edu or go to our website, www.ancestors.com. Click on Questions and Ancestors and look for the email form.